Hello, everybody. My name is Justin Key, and I am with the Mogul Millennial. And here I have with me today, Scooter Taylor, the man, the myth, the legend, the co-founder of QuarantineCon.
What's
So
up,
much
man?
more, so much more. So, Scooter, welcome, man, and thank you for being a part of this interview session.
No, look, I appreciate you contacting me and just it's really cool to be able to do this with friends, right? I think what's cool is we've seen each other in so many capacities, right? We've laughed together, we've cried together, we've eaten together, we've partied together, and so now this is cool that we're kind of in a business kind of frame, right? Supporting Mogul Millennial, you supporting myself, and so just being able to do that is cool.
Yeah. Definitely. It's something that it's funny that you always say, and it's the whole team eats. And I just think it's incredible that it's becoming full circle, us working together in personal capacities and professional capacities. Yeah, man, this is a dope time to be alive, even in the midst of a pandemic.
For sure. And I think, that's the beautiful part of technology is that, when things like this are occurring, we can still foster this connection, right? Yeah. I'm excited to be able to sit next to people again and high five them and shake their hands and give them hugs. But, I think this has kept a lot of people, in a good space, where, I think some people are really at home alone, right? Away from parents, away from, yourself, you're not, you're not with family. And so to think like, man, I could go months without really seeing people is scary. But, I think things like this and your podcast and just, again, give people voices and ways to connect still.
Yeah, I definitely think that connection is key, and it's allowing us to explore what the definition of connection is. Yeah, we're not face to face. Yeah, we're not doing, brunches every weekend, because that's like definitely part of the culture. But, taking it virtual, we're still getting it in, and we're definitely still doing it for the culture. So I'm here for it. And if you ready for this interview, the Mogul Millennials audience, got some questions for you.
Yeah, I'm ready for it. I'm ready. Okay. Yeah, no, let's do it.
Right in my Beyonce Jay-Z voice. You ready?
I'm ready. Let's go. Let's take over the world.
Okay, Scooter, what was your introduction to the tech world? And were you familiar with it? Did you fall into it? How did it all come about?
Yeah, great question. I think it's funny that I'm back at home during quarantine. And so I'm literally, doing a lot of this in the same room that I grew up in and was on the computer doing stuff in. I would say early on introduced to technology just through having, fortunate enough to have a computer at the house, and so, taking typing classes and seeing my older sister use, AIM. And so, was fairly familiar with the computer, right? And how to play video games, right? And how to play computer games like Backyard Baseball and Roller Coaster Tycoon, which was an amazing game. But I probably got introduced to it kind of this new modern tech age. I was at Taekwondo class, and my good friend had just bought a MacBook, and I tripped over the cord. And remember the cords used to be magnetic. Mm-hmm. And so I was like, whoa, that was cool. Like, what is this? And he was like, oh, it's a MacBook. You just pop it in, And I was like, that's amazing. And then he was also in iMovie, and he was making a movie, and he was doing the Star Wars trailer credits. And if you know me, I'm a big Star Wars fan. And so I grew up watching Star Wars, all this stuff, Darth Maul and Obi-Wan Kenobi. And so I'm like, yo, how are you doing the Star Wars edits? Like, I didn't even know it was possible that you could do it. And he was like, oh, there's this program called iMovie. And so maybe 3 weeks later, I saved up my Taekwondo money. I used to be an instructor, so I would get paid $10 an hour. And I guess I had a lot in savings at the time, but looking back, but I remember paying for my first MacBook because I was like, I want this. And so that was the introduction to like me being on the laptop 24/7 when I got the MacBook. We didn't even have Wi-Fi at the house. I mean, that's how crazy it is to think about now. But like, we didn't even have Wi-Fi. Like, literally, that was not in our cable package because we didn't need it. No one had laptops, and it was just kind of like, what do we like? It wasn't even. It was like 2008, 2007, 2008. So yeah, so interesting.
Now, with this introduction, it sounds like it was fun. When did the epiphany happen to the point that let you know this could actually be a career, like a money-making career?
Yeah, no, another good question. So I think for me, I've always approached things as projects. Because they really were projects. And so I think now I understand obviously the business opportunity, like to the max, right? So let me walk you back, right? So right after I bought that MacBook, we became YouTubers. And so we created a YouTube channel. We had 20,000 subscribers on this YouTube channel. But again, it was a project. It was just like, we stay up late, we make videos, we edit them, we think of new cool tricks, we think of new ideas. And the channel was growing, and then we started to get paid by YouTube, right? So we were probably doing the channel for like a year or a year and a half, and then, YouTube kind of unleashed this like partner program that said, hey, you can put ads next to your videos and start getting paid. So we instantly jumped on that. We understood business development because we would also email OtterBox and all these different iPhone case companies, and we'd say, hey, we have an iPhone, or we have an iPad, or we have a MacBook. Send us your protective case and we'll do a review on it. And we have, 3,000 people watching our videos. And so we were doing business development, but again, I was, barely 16. And so I didn't really know probably the proper term for business development. So what I'm saying is like, these were just projects, right? I went to college and I launched a nonprofit that, again, still was really like a project. Like I knew that like there was a long-term gain. I knew that if I did this, then like, man, I would probably, maybe not become rich, but I would at least, get a nice job because I did something impressive.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of my approach to it, right? Like these projects will lead to me making money rather than like these projects are solely about money. And then I started a company called Look Live. I got to start a company, and that wasn't a project. That was a legit company. And so that was from day one, like we have to make money. Which was different. It's a different pressure when that happens, it's a different kind of energy. And so I learned a lot during that business. And then I would say QuarantineCon, which we launched a month ago, started off as a project, but I think we were also just smarter, wiser, aware to understand the business opportunity. So now we put the infrastructure in place for it to be a business. But I mean, it started off as a project. And so, I think when you go in starting things with like this idea of how much money I can make, and like, I think, understanding the opportunity is important, but like, give yourself that time to think of it as a project. Because I think you still get to fail at things and move fast, and you get to, you're nicer to yourself when, when it's a business and you don't have, the ability to, you're so like, so much false pressure on yourself, right? That you're like, oh, I gotta make this money, and I gotta do this, and I gotta pay these employees, and I have investors, and how do I raise venture capital? And like, that's just a different energy than like, hey, I'm working with my friend and we're doing this. And oh, by the way, we're learning,
Now you say you launched it a month ago. How did it come about? Like, when did this conversation start with you and your business partner, Tre'von?
Yeah, Tre'von. So we've known each other for years, right? We went to Morehouse together. And so Tre'von and I hit it off probably the first day we met. There's actually a picture of us meeting with our laptops out. And like, we were talking about some of these projects that we wanted to work on. And so we launched our first project in college. It was around, getting people clean water for the water crisis, right? Nearly 1 billion people around the world right now, like, don't have access to clean water. And so these people literally have to wake up and walk upwards of 4 miles a day just to get water for their family. And when you think about they're getting water, there's not just water to drink, it's water to wash clothes, it's water to cook with, it's water to clean, right? So these are, this water supply, they had to walk 4 miles to go get. And then when they get there, it's probably like dirty and infested with diseases and has been, used by animals. And so that was a problem that we saw in college. And we said, okay, we can actually make a fun event out of like helping that. And so we tried to break a world record for the world's largest water balloon fight. We said, let's break a world record and call it Water Wars. And like the money that we raise, people will like give to this cause. Fast forward probably 6, 7, 8 months, we failed miserably at actually breaking the world record. And we thought we were failures, right? We were like, man, we stayed up late, we missed classes, we did all this stuff to like execute this thing. And it's not about to happen, right? We the most important pressure of it all right? We told people we were going to do it, and now we're not doing it. And so that, but again, looking back, all false things that like we were actually very successful. We helped 3,000 people get access to clean water.
Okay.
But then on top of that, we just learned a lot about business, right? We learned, it could be a whole nother 2 hours with you if we talked about everything we learned.
Yeah.
But we don't need to go into that 2 hours, because technically I think you can see a lot of what we learned by QuarantineCon. Right. Okay. So when we had the idea to throw a conference, which it was out of the blue. I mean, we were actually at another digital conference and we were just watching it. And I texted him and said, hey, we should do one ourselves. Like, we can do one. And he was like, okay, let's do it. And so we stayed up that night and like started to plan. And it took us 4 days to plan it. But in that 4 days, we like activated all those muscles that we had been learning on the water project.
Take me through just a couple of steps. So you were already at a digital conference with Tre'von, and then you said, okay, we can do this. I think we should do this. Yeah. What were those official next steps? You said it took you 4 days. Just give me a couple of the steps that you took from we should do this, boom.
Yeah, so we should do this happened around probably like 3 or 4 o'clock on a Tuesday. Okay. That night we got back on a call together and we had to first just get the technology. So the technology we were using was the cool part. It was like, oh, this is the technology. So if we didn't have that technology, like, would we have done it? Maybe, I don't know. But like, we essentially were able to get that technology and see how much it costs, right? And so it turned out to be $100 a month. Okay, so I cash apped him 50. He, put up $50 and we bought the technology. And then literally the next step after that was we opened up Google Docs and we said, okay, like, let's look at this other conference that we went to, right? What were all the elements? Okay, they had sponsors, they had a nice like description about it, they had a nice, speakers, they had branding. Again, the technology made it easy, but it was like, okay, if we did all of these things and basically made the same page that the other conference made, we would have a conference. Okay, so we went to Google Docs and we just listed out all those things. And then we said, okay, like, let's go figure this out. What date do you want to do it? And it was Tuesday. I said, let's do it on Sunday. And he's like, okay, let's do it on Sunday. And so, and then just what time do you want to do it at? And like, I think there's this myth around like, it has to be super complex or you have to be this like genius that thinks of formulas for this to work. And it's like, I think it's really about like, once you have the idea, being able to work backwards and project manage and prioritize and get things done.
Okay.
So that was the first night. I think we stayed up to like 2 a.m. and we kind of finished the document in the sense of we thought about topics, we thought about potential speakers. And I woke, I fell asleep excited about that. So then the next day was about like, again, just, it's kind of like football when you're like down by, you're down by 7 and there's, 2 minutes left. You have to manage the clock, right? You've got to know how many plays do I need to go 80 yards to go get a touchdown so we can go like score, but I only have 2 minutes to do it. So that's gotta be a mix of like running plays. There are a mix of like passing plays. I gotta also account for like, if I throw the ball and like, it doesn't actually become a completion, like, so you gotta think of like, what are my plays that are gonna get me to the end? And so, we just thought about that. Like, okay, like what do we need to do to get us to the finish line?
Okay. Now, how did you secure partnerships and sponsorships to really have this take off?
Yeah, no, another good question. So, I mean, we felt that the sponsorships, looked at it as credibility, right? We knew that like, we were confident that like our friends and our initial, sphere of network or whatever would get us maybe 500 people, maybe 1,000 if we're lucky. But we knew that like, once it went outside of our kind of sphere of influence, people would be like, what is this? We don't know what this is. And so we said, okay, if we had logos that were, kind of representative of the culture or whatever, or just that people recognize, then they might, take longer than a 30-second glance at it, right? And so where do we start? Okay, well, we actually, we were consulting for companies that we thought would, appreciate the visibility. So let's put them on there. Hey, my friend has a really cool brand that I think is cool. Let's put them on there. And then it became a thing where it was just like, hey, actually, like, why don't we just put our friends on here? Like, like we're not like, the odds of us getting first off, the odds of us asking an actual brand for $500 and they're saying yes in 2 days is kind of unreal to think about, because they don't know us, we don't know them, and like we don't have a deck together, and we just thought of this last night. But we do have people that like have brands that want awareness, that could use the awareness. Let's just align with them. And so those were just, but again, like understanding time, managing the time, prioritizing the task, and just, being in a business environment and saying, okay, Scooter, there are a lot of things that you need to do. What is the highest leverage thing that you need to do, right? So there's you can do everything, but there's some things that like, if you're doing it, you're kind of just wasting 30 minutes, right? And maybe someone else can do that just as good as you could do it. Like you're going to do it, but also like there's someone that can do it just as good as you do it. So what if you like delegated that? And so I actually called my like 17-year-old cousin and I said, hey, what are you doing? You want to make $150? And she said, yeah. I said, good. Okay. You're going to log into my Instagram. And for me, it's like, okay, instead of doing the 30 minutes or 45 minutes of reaching out to all my friends, like, let me just spend the 10 minutes and do the quick message that I know I want to send. Hey, Justin, what's up? I want your logo. I'm doing this thing. Can you send it to me out of state, right? I gave it to her. I gave her my Instagram password and I said, reach out to these 20 people. And when they respond yes, just mark it that they've responded yes, and check the email to make sure that they've sent it. And at the end of the day, whoever hasn't sent it, go back and ask them again to send it. Great. Now that's happening in the background while I can go do the other things that like she can't do, right? Like she couldn't think of description or brand or Photoshop, or she couldn't message the speakers for me, right? Because they don't know her, right? But she can act like she's me and message the logo folks. So I think there's like, that's, that was a little insight into how we were thinking about it in those ways. But again, like, I don't think that comes naturally. Like, I think that comes with just years of like, you doing stuff and you're like, oh shit, yeah, I need to do this.
Delegation, family, I'm here for it. I'm here for it.
Yeah.
Now, were there any specific marketing strategies that you used outside of going to your friends for their brands? When you did that, did they have to repost? Did you hit up friends and say, use our hashtag? Like what were some marketing strategies that you used to really launch?
Yeah, so again, we knew that like maybe the main marketing was gonna come probably from like both Tre'von and I's profiles, right? We didn't make a QuarantineCon. We had made a QuarantineCon account, but again, had 0 followers. So all the eyeballs were looking at us. And so I think the big thing there, what I found was engagement was key, right? And so, well, it was two things. It was two things that we took. The strategy we took actually was around like a secrecy buildup kind of thing. So I actually posted that I wanted to do it the first day. And I said, hey, if I did this, who would come? Right? And there were several people that were like, that's dope, I would come, like that was cool. And it was just a picture of a tweet. It was like, hey, if I did this, would you come? And that was like Tuesday. And then we planned it on Wednesday, we planned it on Thursday. Friday afternoon, we put out the branding. And I knew that if the branding was tight, people were gonna be very impressed, because they just saw that on Tuesday, I said, this is an idea, but then like the branding looks really professional. And it's like, whoa, they turned that around really quickly. So I think that would excite people, right? So it was that excitement kind of dropping, like Beyonce kind of thing, like effect, right? And then from there, it became just an engagement thing. And then, to be honest, like I would also have my cousin, and I was just like, hey, like direct message this to people, But that was also the thing too. Like we knew that when we brought the logos out, everyone whose logo was a part of it was also going to share it, right? And then we had the speakers. So then we knew when the speakers dropped, like they were going to share it, And so there was an accordion effect. But Now, I think the main thing people look for is credibility, right? And so it's like, is this real? People are, I don't want to say people are sheep, but they're just creatures of like a herd mentality, right? Is real. And so if everyone's doing it, if everyone's buying a Nintendo Switch, like I want a Nintendo Switch, and that's how it happens. I mean, you think about it, like you watch the show on Netflix, not really because Netflix has the ad, right? But because your friend says, have you seen, Black Mirror? And then you're like, no, I haven't seen it. And then you start to see the ads pop up, and then you start to see the tweets about it. And then you're like, you know what, let me go see it, try it out. And so the same thing I think with this is like, okay, Scooter's talking about it. Oh, wow, he's got some cool logos and they're talking about it. Okay, the speakers seem dope and they actually are in, like they're actually reposting it. Like that feels real. And then I'm looking at the comments and like people are excited about it. And he's also like interacting with people and like, you know, like, so, okay, cool. Like this is a thing, like, let's do it. So yeah.
That's really dope. No, the speaker
but
line,
I still didn't think that we'd get 4,000 people. Like at that moment, it was still like,
that was incredible. But as you said, though you said there is no formula, you had a really dope formula. I mean, when you think your sphere of influence, all the work you've done, like you said, some things you learn from experience and you have a track record. So I just want to put that out there. Now, how did you get your speaker lineup? Because I peeped QuarantineCon. I was like, okay, this is the thing.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think first of it was like Tre'von and I coming together and saying like, okay, what do we want to talk about, right? Like if we actually had a conference, like we can't just put up, fluff, right? There's got to be some kind of substance, because we wouldn't go to a fluff conference. So what are those topics that we want to hit on, and who do we think is like number one in that space? And when we looked up at the short list, like most of our people were Black women, which was cool, right? Jewel Burks, Beatrice Dixon, De'Ara Taylor, who's a YouTube influencer, right? And it was just like, all these people had like very respectable accomplishments, what they were doing. Skylar, like strategist for BuzzFeed, and has thrown like one of the largest physical conferences in New York for Black creatives, right? With her team, Imani and Michael and the Creative Collective. And so it was like, hey, like, these are people that we think are dope, right? Like if we were to bring a conference where all these creatives who are sitting at home right now on quarantine, who should they be hearing from? It's like, oh, they should be hearing from these folks, not even us, right? Like they should be hearing from, and I got that feedback from like different people, like, why are you not on here? Why are you not speaking? And it was like, this isn't about me. Like, this is not like, I actually want to hear more from the other folks than from me. Okay. And so yeah, but I think, also it's best to invest in the relationship when you don't want to, right? And so it's easy to, reach out to people when you need them and be like, hey, what's up? Like, oh man, we should work together. And like, I need you for this, right? But I think a lot of those people, like I've known for the last 3-4 years, right? And, intentionally, but like, I'd like to think also by just nature of like, what I believe in, where it's like, like, again, whole team eats, right? Or good people should meet good people, or, and so, how many times do I text you throughout the week that's just like, hey, checking in, right? And you vice versa, right? Just like, hey, thinking about you, like what's going on, or I read an article and like sending it to you, and so I've done that with each of those people, not like every week or every day, but like intentionally, like, oh, hey, Jewel, like, let's go get coffee, right? Or like, hey, Jason, like, this new thing is happening in music, right? Like you should know about this, right? And so we've had those touch points to where the relationship, so much had already been invested that I think when I came texting, it made it really easy for them to say, yeah, I trust you, like, let's go, right? Because it wasn't like, oh, you're only here trying to like profit off of my, likeness, right? Like, sure, there's some of that, but like, there's also like, this is a genuine kind of like, we're actually, we know each other. Like we actually have their numbers in their phone. Except for Beatrice with Honeypot. I did not know her. I knew of her, but I knew her brother. And so when she locked in as a speaker, I was like, okay, we are really about to hit a level, because I think her brand is awesome and just like, but it was also out of my sphere of network, right? Where I was like, whoa, this is like, I'm kind of surprising myself that we got this one, but. So.
Now, it has been an incredible run for QuarantineCon. You talked about yourself, you talked about Tre'von, you talked about your little cousin. Tell me more about your team and who's on it, and did you get them because of your sphere network? Did somebody connect you to them and say, this person will be great to do this? How did you secure your team?
I think, again, we've learned over the last several years, right? When Tre'von and I were first doing it, we learned two things. We learned that when you do something that's like big, right, people want to be a part of it. And so what happens is you get a lot of people being like, I want to help. And so if you're not organized and learning how they can help, then it just all goes to shit, right? Because two things need to happen. Like, they're gonna come in and it's a startup, and it's a thing that we just thought about 4 days ago. So we don't have all the answers, right? But what we have to be able to do is Tre'von and I be on the same page enough to know the vision of where we're going, and to be able to like confidently explain that vision simply and clearly, so that from that vision, people know how to act. So it's less of like, oh, well, let me ask Tre'von if this is right, or let me ask if Scooter if this is right. So they can look and say, okay, I have to make a decision about something, a caption, a post. I got to make a decision about a potential speaker that I want to put involved, whatever the thing is that if they're working for us, and they should be able to go back to the vision and be like, this is off. This does not feel like something they'd want, right? Or, okay, this is actually something that should be a thing and fall in line. You know what I'm saying? And so we learned that early. We learned that like, also, if we don't explain the vision and we're clear about it, people will just start making things up that they think is right. And then we'll get frustrated because we're like, that's not the vision. And you can't really fault them because they're like, I didn't know. Like, you didn't tell me. I thought I was helping, you know? And so with that, we knew we would get people who wanted to join the team and come on board. We also knew that we couldn't do it all ourselves. So we have to be really organized around what we needed people to do and what success looked like. And also set up a system for them to be successful. So not so they could be successful one time, but so that they would just like keep doing it. Right. And again, like at the end of the day, like people fantasize about startups, but it's really just business building. That's what a startup is. It's business building. And so you think about Coca-Cola, American Express, any Zoom, any big company, and you think of all the positions that you work, think of your 9-to-5 job that you work at. They make it really easy for you to be successful with that job. There's a system and you know what to do and what to upload and what documents to use and who to report to. And so when you're building a company or a startup or a project, like you've got to build that in, even if it is in a casual way, very early. Hey, when do we meet? Hey, Kelly, when you get this person to do this, what do you do next with it? You know, and like, here's what we got to do. And we got to also be disciplined enough to use it so that, you know, like it doesn't break. And so you can keep adding people into the system. And so, and again, thankfully, I think Tre'von and I have like had enough experiences that we can think through those systems pretty quickly. Like me and him can be like, oh shit, we need an intern to do this. Okay, okay, they're gonna be doing this, and they're gonna do this. Ooh, that's not gonna work because they won't have access to that. Okay, yeah, let's make a folder that they do that. Okay, cool. When that folder comes in, and now we're just thinking of all like literally what we need them to do. So now when we find the person, we're like walking them through, and then the person's like feels confident because they're like, oh, this is great. But then we also let that person know, like, this is important because if we don't do this step correct, then we won't be able to do this other step correct over here.
Yeah.
You know, and so like, yeah, you got to be able to do that and still also do the business and still also da-da-da and still also da-da-da. So that's the team. I mean, the team right now meets twice a day. We meet at 10 a.m. Eastern every morning and 10 p.m. every night. And we talk about a lot. We talk about everything that we're trying to work on. And so, but it's cool because now like Kelly, who leads our events, is the one that is responsible for just like organizing the event. So like Tre'von and I have the great idea or the cool idea or the vision or whatever. Sometimes we don't. Sometimes it's someone else who's like, yeah, this is a cool idea. And we're like, that is a cool idea. Let's go do it. Who do we go to first? We go to Kelly and we're like, Kelly, here's the idea. We're thinking it's around this date. We think these are the speakers. What does Kelly go do? Kelly has a system of how to go input all that information.
Okay.
And so now when we meet every morning, she's like, hey, let's talk about that one event y'all thought was cool. Where are we with speakers? Where are we with this? Have we finalized this? Have we done this? Mm-hmm. Oh, okay, yeah, I can do that. I can do that. I can do that. I can do this. I can do that. Okay, break. Then we go through the day. We meet at 10 p.m. Hey, what's up? Let's go back down the list. So where are we on that one event? And now we can start being accountable. Oh, I didn't actually get a chance to do that. Okay, why not? Oh, I napped in the middle of the day. You know, and again, like, okay, cool, you napped, but like, you know, okay, let us, you know, like, so it's just like, now, but again, it's also prioritization. And again, we're just going back down to Google Doc, right? That same Google Doc that we used on the first day, right? It's just, you know, so it's like, again, not rocket science, but also just takes discipline and prioritization, which I'm learning. Like, you know, met me 4 years ago, I probably wouldn't have been this disciplined to like, I would have probably thought that I could just go do it all again myself. Mm-hmm. now I'm realizing that, yeah, I can go do one by myself, maybe, right? But we were literally planning like 9 at the same time. We literally are planning 9 at the same time right now.
I know you on a personal level, and I am blown away by.
Again, it's fun because we always talk on a personal tip, and so I have all this in my head, but like sometimes every conversation doesn't come out of it, so it's good.
Well, Scooter, I appreciate you coming on for the Mogul Millennial fan base, supporters, followers, and we would definitely love to have you back on if that's something that you're interested in, especially to hear about updates and things of that nature, and definitely looking to potentially partner with the company in the future. Any last words for the Mogul Millennial audience, and then we will let you get on for your prep to post.
Yeah, launch this thing, man. No, I think just really keep believing in yourselves and your visions, and like you can go as high as you can believe you can go, and everyone's free to email me, just scooter@scootertaylor.com. Who's listening, who might want to ask me questions. Okay,
cool. And what's your IG?
Just Scooter Taylor.
Scooter Taylor. Okay, folks, you heard it here. Scooter Taylor, co-founder of QuarantineCon, Memphis, Tennessee, repping. Okay, we will see you later. Peace.
Thanks, yeah. See ya.